Hello everybody, welcome back to my journey to the media world. It's 2021. It's been a while since I've done one of these Zoom interviews, so I hope you're doing well and keeping safe. Today I'm delighted to say that I'm joined by a very inspirational person to myself in Jack Rutter, former GB captain and England cerebral palsy player. Jack, how are you? Happy New Year, mate.
Happy New Year, Jude. I'm good, thank you. How are you, pal?
Yeah, I'm doing good, mate. It's good to get back to doing some of these interviews. What we're going to do, Jack, is we're going to talk through your story. As I've introduced you as a England cerebral palsy player, we're just going to rewind it back a little bit and talk about how you were on the verge of becoming a Premiership footballer. Let's talk a bit about that for me, please.
It's been a roller coaster ride, to say the very least, as you already know, Jude. But my first memories of football came very, very young. I kind of remember it, but my mum is the one who tells me the story all the time. Apparently, I walk into my living room as a 4-year-old and I see Manchester United playing, and they were battering some team 4-0. It could have been even Aston Villa, Jude, I don't know. But Eric Cantona was playing.
Wouldn't surprise me.
And he had his collar up. And anybody who knows Eric Cantona, he's a real maverick, a real talisman of that Manchester United team. He really stood out, and he inspired me to take up the game of football. So that's why I got involved in the game first and foremost, being inspired by Eric Cantona and supporting Manchester United. And from there, and obviously their great success, didn't they, through the 90s and early 2000s. And hopefully we're just about coming back now and we could take the title this year, who knows. But that was the reason why I got involved in the game. Picked up a football at 4 years old, never put it down, always practicing, always trying to be the best that I could be. And I was rewarded for all that hard work, signed for Birmingham City Football Club. Very, very lucky when I was 10 years old. So I was thrown at the deep end, playing against all the big teams, all the best players that this country has to offer. And I spent 8 years at the Birmingham City Football Academy, all the way from 10 years old, all the way through the ranks to 18 years old, where I was captain in the youth team, playing for the reserve team, a fundamental part of the reason why our youth team got to the semi-finals of the FA Youth Cup, where we were due to play against Liverpool at Anfield. It's been an amazing game to play in. And also I was about to sign my professional contract. So it was all going well at 18.
Yeah, definitely. Sounds great. Unfortunately, one night your life changed. March 22nd, 2009. Have I got that right?
Yeah, that's the date. Yeah, well, I remember, June.
Tell everyone about that and how that was taken away from you.
Yeah, so on the Tuesday night, we played Watford at St Andrews, and we beat Watford in the quarterfinals of the FA Youth Cup. So, as I said, we just reached the semi-final of that competition. Obviously, a massive competition in England, but also it's recognised all over the world. We were 2 weeks away from playing against Liverpool at Anfield, and all going well. I was going to sign my professional contract for Birmingham City, or I had a few other options as well. But I went on a night out on March 22nd, 2009, as you mentioned. I had a weekend off, so I caught up with friends. Had a really, really good evening, really, really fun time. But unfortunately, at the end of the evening, I was the victim of an unprovoked assault. So I was talking to my friend outside a nightclub, and a boy out of nowhere walks up behind me, 2 steps, bang, smacks me straight in the back of the head, knocks me completely unconscious. So when I fall, I hit the back of my head on a curbstone. You apparently could hear the thud of my head hitting the floor from down the street. Blood coming from my mouth, nose and ear. Obviously a very traumatic scene. And I was rushed straight to Gloucester Royal Hospital and then transferred straight to Bristol Hospital, Frenchay Hospital, where I spent 3 weeks in intensive care. Obviously I don't remember very much because of my amnesia, but the injuries were very, very serious, and fractured my skull in 2 places. So I fractured my skull on the back of my skull, where my head hit the curb, but also from the punch, he actually fractured my skull on that side of my head as well. And that side fracture actually severed my cochlear nerve. So my right ear is completely deaf, will be for the rest of my life. I had a brain hemorrhage, so I bleed on the brain, and obviously from my brain hitting the floor so hard, I suffered some brain damage as well. So very, very traumatic, very, very scary times for me and my family. And when I left hospital after 3 weeks in intensive care, it was very, very serious. I didn't have to use a wheelchair to get around, but it was a case of such a big trauma to my brain and body that it made me so unstable, so unbalanced. And even when I tried to sit up or stand up, the pain in my head was so severe that it was best that I was either sitting down or lying back. And it was a case of going home then and resting up and recovering. I was sleeping sort of 14 to 16 hours a day, resting and recovering, but it was a massive trauma to my brain and to my body, hard to come to terms with. and my balance and coordination was never going to be the same again, never to that top level that it was at. And obviously losing my hearing meant that I was going to have problems with vertigo, disorientation, and ringing in my right ear. So really troubling, horrible times, to be honest with you, Jude.
Yeah, and you mentioned about that traumatic time in terms of recovery, but at what stage did it kick in for you, or realise that maybe professional football wasn't going to be the case anymore?
It wasn't straight away, because I was a bit, not blasé, but my mind was so foggy after my brain injury, because it not only affected me physically, but mentally as well. So my ability to concentrate, my emotional control, my short-term memory. So I wasn't really with it totally for a number of weeks, really. It wasn't until, I would say, 3 or 4 months after the assault, I was starting to feel a little bit better. My balance and coordination was starting to come back. And I went back to Frenchay Hospital, and the specialist said, okay, your fracture's healed now, you can go back to playing some sort of sport. But to be honest with you, playing professional football, surfing, riding a bike, that sort of thing, you may find quite difficult now because of your brain injury and also losing your hearing in your right ear. But I almost took that as a challenge. I thought, okay, we'll see about that. So I trained and I worked really hard. I went on YouTube and went back to Birmingham to do Pacific balance and coordination training. And I did find myself getting a bit better, but it wasn't until I probably went in my back garden where I grew up playing football and running around molehills and whipping balls in the top corner around trees and stuff like that in the countryside, when I was almost walking on there and feeling so unbalanced and so unstable that it was like, yeah, this is quite serious. And it dawned upon me. And then going back to Birmingham, going on trial to Forest Green Rovers and Cheltenham Town, I just wasn't at it. I just couldn't move my body at the same speed. I couldn't move sideways and backwards at the same pace. That was the biggest problem. Running forward was okay, but sideways, backwards, twisting, turning, coordinating my body with the football and reacting to things just wasn't the same. And obviously, after a brain injury, you're not going to be the same at heading the ball. One, because of fear. I don't want to have a brain injury again. I don't want to get clattered again. I mean, you only have to look at Jimenez recently playing for Wolves. But also, it's all about timing and coordination. And unfortunately, those skill sets weren't as good. So it was then that it dawned upon me again that, you know, maybe it's going to be tough to continue or try to play professional football. So it was about 18 months after the assault, I took the very tough decision to retire from professional football. And that was when it really hit me very, very hard. You know, I really, really struggled to come to terms with that. Felt I lost my purpose, lost my motivation, lots of time just spent in bed doing nothing. I'd stopped playing football, stopped watching football, didn't want anything to do with it. So it was a real troubling time for me with my mental health at that point.
Yeah, so then how did the CP football come about, and how did you reignite your love for the game?
So I spent a number of years doing quite random things. I went travelling for a bit, which really helped me, to be honest with you, Jude, because it took me away from that person that I was in Gloucester, where I grew up, and people always asking me, "Oh, how's the football going? How's the recovery going?" It was hard to, you know, to have those conversations. So I took myself away from that. Went travelling, went to Australia, went to New Zealand, Thailand. Although it was strongly recommended I shouldn't do that by Headway and my mum and my family, I thought, I've got to get out of here. So it was more good than it was bad to do that, I think. And it helped me escape from those feelings a bit. And it was there that I decided to go to university. So I went to university at Nottingham Trent University, but I couldn't access the course, one, because of motivation, but two, because of my type of brain injury, I found it really hard to concentrate for long periods of time, taking information and apply it to a question or an exam or an essay. So I failed at that. I took up a bit of coaching at Derby County, football in the community, which I kind of enjoyed, but kind of struggled with. Did a bit of coaching at university, but things weren't going particularly that well at that point. In 2012, struggling really. Mental health was probably at its worst in many ways at that point, because, you know, most of my friends were completing university degrees, high flying in their job, and I was just completely lost, going out drinking, not doing the right things. But it was actually in the office at Headway in Nottingham in 2012, where I asked them one day, you know, is there any disability football potentially that I could play? You know, I'm deaf, I've had a brain injury, didn't have a clue what there was out there, what opportunities lay ahead. And the lady in the office, Paula, always remember, what a lovely lady, she rang Nottinghamshire FA, and they said, yeah, if he's had a brain injury, he may qualify to play in cerebral palsy football. And there was an East Midlands team training out of Nottingham College, and they said they train on Saturday mornings, give it a go, see how you get on. So I arrived there with my medical notes and that sort of thing, handed them to the coach.
Was that strange with the handing the medical note? Like,
yeah, it was so strange, like having those medical notes. And I didn't realise how serious all the injuries were. When you actually read it all in those medical notes, it's scary to think that I am the way that I am now, physically and mentally, with the injuries that I suffered. But yeah, they looked at the medical notes and they were like, "Yep, you can play." And I trained with the team, and the players were so inspirational, Jude, because they were far more impaired than I was. You could really see it when they run and they walked and they played the game, but they were so happy to represent that region, so passionate about it. So they really helped me with my motivation and inspired me. So I trained with them. I loved it, loved the session, found out a bit more about how seven-a-side CP football works. And then the conversation started. You could play regionally, do well, and then there's an England team, and then there's a Great Britain team, and there's World Cups and Paralympics you could go to. And I was like, no way. I never knew any of this existed. So it was that sort of light bulb moment in my head. And I was like, maybe this is a second chance to getting back into the game. So I started training with them more and more. Confidence started to come back. And then I moved back home to my mum's house in Gloucestershire. And then I trained religiously every single day, working and training, trying to get better and better and better. And that was when I found I recovered so much better. And I started playing at a decent level again. And I had a massive goal in sight, and that was to play for England.
Yeah. And then what was the moment like? You've got that momentum now. You're training every day. When did you get the call from Jeff Davis?
So I actually watched the Paralympics on TV, obviously in London, our capital. And between me and you, Jude, I should have gone to that competition. I wish I knew about that. I wish I knew the Paralympics and that football existed back in 2009 after my injury, because I'm sure I would have got involved in that a lot sooner. But I didn't know about it. It was too late to join the team in 2012 at that level because of classifications and stuff like that. But as soon as that competition finished, Jeff Davis rang me. I was sat in my bedroom, not this one, I was sat in my bedroom at my mum's house, and he rang me up and he said, "Jack, we watched you play a little bit, heard your story. We still think you have a lot to offer in the game. Want to give you an opportunity. Do you fancy coming for a trial with the England team at the brand new state-of-the-art facility at St George's Park when it just opened?" And I just couldn't believe it. My eyes were welling up, and I was like, "Yeah, okay, Jeff, thank you." Like cracking up in my voice, and I thought, "Oh wow, this is unbelievable." And I just remember it was in October of 2012. I'm driving in through the gates at St George's Park, pitches immaculate, Hilton Hotel, buffet meal, eat what you want, all of the England kit laid out, all the coaches are brilliant, all the players were fantastic to talk to and meet. They gave me great insight into the sport, and I just couldn't believe it. I absolutely couldn't believe it. Finally found my motivation back. I had a spring in my step again, and I thought, you know what, I'm going to really go for this and try and take up this opportunity with both hands.
Yeah, and I mean, you did take that opportunity with both hands, didn't you? What was your first tournament? You scored on your debut, didn't you?
Yeah, so my first tournament was actually like a mini tournament in Canada, in Montreal. So I couldn't believe it. You're flying out to Canada to play for England after what I'd been through. And it was Argentina, I think Canada, and Australia could have been. I think it was those three teams in the tournament. And I played against Argentina in the first game. Yeah, and I scored. I put us 1-0 up. Someone had, I think Emil Rudder had sort of a mishit shot, and he was going sort of wide, and I just flicked it in with a little back heel past the goalkeeper. I didn't know what to do. I was like doing the little Drogba celebration down into the corner flag. Lost my head a little bit, but that was my first taste of international football in a tournament. Obviously scored, which was great. And I got classified. That was quite a tough process, a grueling process. They look at you like you're like a robot or something, and they test you on your balance and coordination, and they look at your medical records, and it's quite a grueling process to do that. But they were happy for me to play at that stage, which was brilliant. Played in the tournament, done well. But it wasn't until, I would say, that summer we went to the Intercontinental Championships in Barcelona when it felt really real. We had the names on the back of our shirts, number 9, Rutter on the back. Don't know why I was number 9, Jude. Never been a striker, but that was the number they gave me. And it was in that tournament where I really, really felt like a proper international player. I felt like all of my work and training over the years had been rewarded for, and played against all the big teams, played against Russia, Great game against Ireland. We lost the game, but I scored 2 goals in that game, and I really put my name on the map and really felt part of the team at that point. And it was just an amazing experience to play for my country for the first time.
At what stage did you get given the armband?
So following that tournament, hopefully I showed some decent leadership skills. One of the things I can do is I can get on with anybody, really. I can be quite immature at times and get on with like a 16-year-old, but I can also show some maturity and talk to an 80-year-old as well. So I felt like I got on with the group quite well, and I connected the group together quite well. And hopefully I did pretty well on the pitch as well. And I think the management staff saw that. So after that tournament in 2013, when we came back to St George's Park to prepare for the the European Championships in Portugal, I was given the armband then. Couldn't believe it. The hairs on the back of my neck were standing up. Couldn't believe that they saw these qualities in me, and that really helped me to mature a bit and really, really focus on not just myself but other people, and be quite selfless and help others to develop as well. And I think that was a turning point in my life in many ways, in my recovery, and was getting the armband for England, becoming a captain, and realising the impact I could have on other people's lives. And it was then that I started taking up opportunities to do the work that I do now in inspirational talks and mentoring and trying to run personal social development programs with people, because I felt, if I'm an England captain and people like the FA believe in me that much, I must have something to offer. So yeah, that was the moment I was named captain, and it really helped me to build momentum in my own life, to recover really well, keep training, but also get the work that I do now and helping others.
Yeah, definitely. We're going to talk about that in a little bit more depth later on. Talk us through, in terms of your playing career, you mentioned how it's, made you a better person in terms of communicating, but talk us through some of your highlights throughout your England career.
Oh, there's been a few highlights. There's been some low moments as well. Plenty of quarter-final and semi-final defeats. But I would say our 1-1 draw against Ukraine in the Euros in Portugal in 2014 was a massive moment, because a year prior to that, or 2 years prior to that, we got beat by Ukraine, I think 7-0. So to draw with Ukraine in that competition really showed how far we came. Keith Webb came in as the manager then, and he got us really, really good defensively, really good tactically, and we managed to somehow get a draw with the world champions Ukraine. So I think that's an amazing game to look back on. I scored the free kick as well, which put us 1-0 up, which was great. And they scored in the last moments. I think it was 2 minutes to go. 1 minute to go, they got the equaliser, which was gutting. But the amount of respect that they had for us after that game was immense, and it showed us that we could compete on the world stage against the top boys. So that was an amazing moment. Finished 5th in that competition, which was a high finish for England team at the Euros in a long, long time. World Cup in 2015 was great for many different reasons. It was the largest disability football competition ever held in the UK. We had 1,000 people at the game against Japan and Ukraine, I believe. And that helped us qualify for the Paralympic Games, which was an amazing moment, because only one player or 2 players in the team had played in the Paralympic Games before. So we were all, eager to qualify and play in the Paralympic Games. And the World Cup was just incredible. Great performance against Japan. I managed to score 6 goals in 33 minutes. Which must be some sort of record, Jude. I don't know how many people have scored 6 goals for England in their time. I don't know, but I managed to do that, which was great. And but more importantly, the team did well again. Unfortunately, we lost to Ukraine and Russia in that competition, which was tough. And Russia really turned the screw on us, so to speak. They saw us as a bit of competition, so they really went for it, and they beat us quite convincingly. But they were the best team in that tournament by a country mile. They were brilliant to watch in that tournament, Russia. But we qualified in 5th place. And then it was obviously the build-up to the Paralympic Games in Brazil in 2016. That was when the awareness started to raise massively with our sport. We were in the media. We were doing newspaper articles. I was in an advert on Channel 4. Couldn't believe it. Many talk sport on the radio every week, doing different things. And it was absolutely incredible to be given the opportunity to raise awareness for the sport, which had helped save my life and help so many young people around the UK. And then, obviously arriving at the Paralympic Games was just an amazing experience. Captaining the team to a 5th place finish, highest finish in over 30 years. Managed to score a goal in 21 seconds. I don't even know if it's a record, but I say it is, Jude. I say it's the quickest goal in Paralympic football history against Ireland. And that was just an amazing experience. 15,000 people in the stadium, millions watching around the world. And it was that competition that I would say it finally helped me put to bed what happened to me. I finally came to terms with what happened to me, because it was on the global stage in front of millions of people and giving back to my friends and my family. My mum was in the crowd crying her eyes out in the first game. She was so proud of her boy captain, his country. And you got to remember that my mum had been through so much, Jude. She'd sat on the chair next to my hospital bed for 14 days straight. She was the one who helped me with my recovery. So to give back to her and my friends and my family in that way, capturing Great Britain in that competition was obviously a huge highlight. But then my final tournament, the year after, 2017, we reached the semi-final of the World Cup. Highest finish ever for an England team at a World Championships, I believe. And the game against America, I'll never, ever beat that. I was on the bench. Andy Smith put me on the bench. I was like, Andy, what are you doing? But no, he knew what he was doing. He was motivating me. Ollie Nugent played, and he was absolutely brilliant. I came on at half-time, helped set up the equaliser, and then I managed to score the winner. I picked up the ball on the edge of my own box. The pitch just seemed to open up. I ran straight towards the goal, about 25 yards out, smashed it into the bottom corner. England 2, America 1, and we're into the semi-finals of the World Cup. And that happened to be my last tournament, unfortunately, due to changes in the classification rules. But what a 5 years, learned so much, and I'm so thankful for the opportunity to play for my country. So I have so much people to thank: the FA, my coaches, the friends I met along the way, and obviously the players who inspired me so much to recover the way I did and do what I'm doing now.
Yeah, and you mentioned there about the change of classification in 2018, which obviously meant you couldn't continue to play. Just very briefly, could you touch upon what that meant to you? Because I remember reading an Instagram post at the time, and I think you were saying it was due to ability rather than the disability. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think they look at the ability too much rather than the disability. If you don't take me out of the argument for the time being. If you look at someone like Ollie Nugent is born with cerebral palsy. Okay, yeah. He might not have it in one side as much as somebody else, but he has cerebral palsy in one side of his body. And because he's trained really hard, he's played with professionals in a professional environment since he was 8 years old, with his dad being a coach at Tranmere. And he's been at Tranmere from 8 years old to 16 years old. So you can't underestimate how much that training and constant rehabilitation and working at it has improved him. And someone like that, to be told he can't play anymore in the sport is beyond a joke for me. I just don't think it's acceptable. Someone like myself, I can understand why, because I am an acquired brain injury. So I have managed to recover really, really well. So I can see why potentially they might say, okay, someone like Jack, the way he's recovered, maybe not. But someone like Ollie, no chance. He should still be able to play. And for me, the sport was in the best position it had been at in the World Cup in 2017. You only have to look at the results. The lower teams were catching up the middle teams. The middle teams were catching up the higher teams. The standard was unbelievable. You had one classification 8 on the pitch at one time to the least impaired, but you had to have 2 classification 5s, which is the most impaired. So the balance of the team was brilliant. And you had, some superb players in each classification, some really, really entertaining games. So to make that call when they did, I don't think was right for the sport. It was frustrating. But I guess, you just got to look at the positives and say that, me and Ollie played for a number of years. We loved it. We enjoyed it. We got so much out of it. He's gone on to play in America on a scholarship, and I'm obviously doing my coaching now, as you said, we'll go on to in a minute. But yeah, I don't think that decision was right by the IFCPF, and I think they'll probably regret it now, because we're not even back in the Paralympics, which I think fundamentally was the reason why they did it, to try and keep us in the Paralympics with the classification process. But now they're probably wishing they didn't, because the sport, in my opinion, isn't quite at the standard it was when people like myself and Ollie were allowed to play. That's just my opinion now.
Yeah, fascinating. We'll move on now to, obviously, you do a host of different things now. You're a coach, as you say, and also you came to my school, in fact, and did a talk about your journey. But one thing that stands out to me, and I'm sure it stands out to you too, is telling your story at a UEFA conference. Don't get much better than that, does it?
Oh, Jude, unbelievable. I'm very, very fortunate to do what I do now, and it still makes me nervous. I still get anxious. Even before this Zoom call, I know you really, really well. I still get those butterflies in my stomach, because
I still get that though, from an interviewer's point of view. So.
Yeah, I just want to do everything the best that I can do. And every time I connect with someone, I want to give the best version of myself. and deliver the best way I can. So that always, makes me a bit nervous. But yeah, it started off just primary school talks, and then it developed to their secondary school. And then it was like a business will have me in. Then I started doing stuff for the FA. And then, in 2000, when was it? 2018? Was it 2019? 2019, possibly, yeah. Jeff told me, emailed me, Jeff Davis, he said, there's a conference at Wembley. It's for UEFA, the Equal Game Conference. You're up to do a talk, and we want you to share your experience, your personal perspective on how disability football has saved your life and helped your life and what it's led to in terms of your work, so that more countries around Europe will buy into it and provide funding and opportunity for players to take up the game and play disability football and change their lives. So to have that opportunity was absolutely incredible. There was representatives from 50 different countries at Wembley for UEFA. So yeah, that is probably the top point of my speeches in many ways, having that opportunity. I hope that I can continue to do stuff for UEFA in the future, because there's still a lot of work to do to promote the game, in my opinion.
Yeah, and we'll go on to that, in fact, because that was going to be my next question. Where do you see CP, having been part of IFCPF and being their young reporter, and obviously going to St George's Park when I did, I've seen the amazing work that CP football does and the sort of path it's on. But where do you see CP football in 5-10 years' time? Or is that a too broader question?
No, I see. I have amazing dreams for everything. I'm always very positive about things. I would love for there to be sort of more of a league structure with the regional teams. So you could almost have every single professional club could have a specific disability team. So they could have a blind team, a power chair team, a CP team, and they all compete against each other in big leagues. And it's not just one game every month or something. It's one game every single week, properly run, professional way. And that will only increase the amount of players playing, which will ultimately give more chance to players to play, but also help players to go through the pathway to reach elite level. It'll give opportunities for coaches to develop. And it'll just help to build the game so much. And then obviously getting the grassroots game right will only help the elite game. The elite game just needs more exposure. It needs more exposure from the media, from governing bodies, everybody trying to get the messages out there more and more. It'd be great for when the elite teams go to a tournament that it was live on the TV, or at least some highlights were packaged up every time and it was shown on the news, because that's the only way to build momentum and raise awareness. So that comes down to the media, funding, governing bodies continue to promote and improve the game. So if we can do that, I think it can go from strength to strength and get bigger and better. And we have to not fill stadiums, but we have to get people watching the games, whether it's on TV or in the stadiums. However you do that is vitally important, because it looks much more professional. The players playing are galvanised by that and feel absolutely amazing, because you shouldn't play in a World Cup semi-final and have 30 people in the stands, in any sport. You should have a stadium that's pretty full, and because it's an amazing achievement for anybody to reach that level. So those are sort of things which I would like to see happen. I know in the amputee football, there was England played against Turkey in the final. And I think it was held at Istanbul, Besiktas or somewhere, and the whole 40,000 people in a stadium. So watching that on the TV, that game, it brought it to life. It was incredible, and that is the sort of epitome, the point to reach in every single disability sport or disability football we can, is to have that sort of scenario where the stadiums are full, it's live on the TV. That's where I would hope to see all of the disability football teams at in 10 years' time. And it's going to be a lot of work, but that's where I want it to go.
Yeah, definitely. I agree with you in terms of all the points you made there. And I think it's really important that it gets pushed out as much as possible, because if I'm honest, until my introduction, when I first came to St George's Park, I think you were still playing at that point, I think. That was the first time I'd known of CP football and disability football, and the fact that there was a CP team, and then it just opened up to find out that there was a whole host of different disability teams. So I just hope it does get to that stage, and hope together we can help do that.
No, exactly. Like you said, like representation in the media. So the work that you're doing now is incredible. for the sport, for yourself, being somebody who has a disability, but in the media. And I can see you going up the ladder. I really can, Jude, and getting big opportunities in the future. And that's what it needs. More and more representation in the media, more and more players doing talks through the FA, off their own back, to raise awareness up and down the country. And if we all do that and all buy in together and all work together, we can build the sport and get it to where we want to get it to. Definitely.
Yeah, definitely. Right. Thank you, Jack. It's been a pleasure. If you'd enjoyed the video, guys, please do leave a like and hit subscribe if you're brand new. And I'll be trying to get as many interviews out as possible. If you're not following Jack's story, follow him on all social medias. You're on Twitter, Instagram. So follow him. He's an inspirational person to me and many others. So until next time, goodbye. And yeah, see you next time.
Thanks, Stu.
Hit the subscribe button and follow my journey to the media world. Click the video choices on screen to see more of my work.